Welcome back to Terror by the Bay. I'm David. Okay, so as some TikTokers I've watched pointed out, we now know one of the things that Trump talked about with Putin on Friday. Trump, in an interview with Fox News host Brett Baier, said that one of the most interesting things Putin told Trump during the summit had to do with the unreliability of mail-in voting. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. I'm sure it's exactly what Putin said, his exact words, because I can only picture the word rigged coming out of Putin's mouth. Further, it's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. Adding that Putin told him no country has mail-in voting. Wow, Putin's a freaking idiot, isn't he? Because like Canada and the UK have mail-in voting. There's a simple fact check. You think the leader of Russia would know about that? Heck, you think the leader of the United States would know about that? Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. Well, that's not true. Donald Trump holds both those titles. I would not call Putin dumb. And then Trump, today, as I record this on Monday, put a post out on his minor social media platform. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. And then when questions are being asked between him and Zelensky, Trump brought up again that mail-in ballots are corrupt. Boy, he's just having a real hard time coping with his loss in 2020. Now, the case in Rockland County, New York, which I thought was going to be updated on August 22nd, and it looks like it's actually September 22nd is the next court date. The data that was being presented there, which convinced a federal judge to go to discovery, I believe it was a federal judge, anyways, to go to discovery on that case, showed that the discrepancies in the vote tallying wasn't because of mail-in ballots. It was for ballots that were cast on that day. In other words, the mail-in ballots are totaled up and they don't go through the tabulator or a voting machine like that. And there's little to no indication that there's any form of fraud or corruption. Now, as I recall in that last election, there were only like a dozen cases of fraud for voting in the entire United States, and almost all of them were for Trump voters. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a small number, and the majority of them were not for people trying to cheat for Joe Biden, just saying. And the typical excuse was either, well, I figured the Biden voters were cheating, so I'd cheat too, or, yeah, my mother died, but I knew she was a Trumper, so I voted for her. You know, it's that kind of, that logic right there. It gets you a felony count if you're black and a hand slap if you're not. Where's I going with this? So, yeah, Trump's having a hard time with that. So now he wants everybody to, have to vote in person, which plays into that algorithm that appears to be switching votes on the voting machines, and it acts as an extra special bonus as voter suppression. It's a disincentive to have to, take a day off work or make arrangements to go stand in line to vote at a polling place. Some people may not have cars. Some people may not be well. And it's easier to vote by mail than it is to actually get to the polling place. So, again, the Republicans have already laid out their plan. Their plan for the 2026 election is to gerrymander where they can for the House seats and to voter suppress as much as they can for the Senate seats. And by voter suppress, one of the main tactics is to purge voter rolls. And if you purge mostly Democratic voters from the voter rolls, you are now balancing the population to favor the conservative voters rather than the Democratic voters. See how that works? So if you had an even 50-50 split and you purged 20% of the Democrats from the voter rolls and only 10% of the Republicans from the voter rolls. Well, now the Republicans have a 10% advantage. It requires the Democrats more Democrats to have to re-register to vote, assuming that they even know that they got purged in the first place. Okay, so let's take a look at the energy. And then, what's Putin doing telling Trump how to do the votes? And besides, it's the states that get it determined, not the federal government, despite what Trump is blasting out on social media and the inevitable executive order that he's supposed to sign any time now. Executive orders are just suggestions. They're not law. And he can't change the Constitution, because this is a constitutionally protected item, that the states dictate how the voting will happen in the states. Again, entertainment purposes only. Let's look at the energy around Trump, Putin, and mail-in balloting. I will say that when Gary and I did a reading on that meeting, we were coming with Gary was coming with a lot of coins cards, and during the elections, the coins cards were our symbol for votes. So he might have been picking up the whole voting scheme, but we were thinking more money than votes. So we'll see how that goes out. Again, what's the energy around Trump, Putin, and mail-in balloting? Foundation of the reading is the Five of Wands, the Hillbilly Brawl card, causing chaos and confusion. Yeah, because now he's trying to do it a year before the election. Mind you, this is all to distract from the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Let's not forget that the whole Putin summit thing is to distract from Jeffrey Epstein. The whole we're going to get rid of the votes is a distraction from Jeffrey Epstein. Let's never forget that this is all about protecting his fragile ego and future prison sentences for raping children with Jeffrey Epstein. Foundation reading, Five of Wands, crossed by the Four of Swords and the Six of Cups. Causing chaos in the system. This is Putin giving Trump a little bit of a gift of distraction, because Trump needs a distraction to keep people to basically put the Epstein case to sleep, and Putin maybe suggested that this would be a good distraction to undergo. In the past, we've got the High Priestess. Current situation is the King of Pentacles. So in the past, Putin understands voter suppression because they do it so well in Russia. Russia, Putin wins like 70% of the vote in Russia. His main opponents tend to get arrested and executed, or drop out, probably after being threatened with imprisonment or execution. And so he wins those elections. He controls the vote. And many voting rights groups monitor Russian elections, and they know that the Russian elections are corrupt. So who better to give Trump advice on how to corrupt an election than the guy who's currently heading up a country that routinely corrupts their elections? Overarching energy is the Moon card, secrets being discussed. I think maybe in my video I mentioned something about they probably talked about something. They were planning something, or they had secrets, and we didn't know what they were. I don't remember what I said in those other videos, but this is probably one of those secrets that they shared. Lesson to be learned is the Nine of Swords again, but this also is kind of trying to distract from the Epstein thing. Trump's anxiety from losing the election in 2020, Trump's anxiety with going to prison, Trump's anxiety of what comes out of the Epstein thing, and notice Putin gave him nothing to get his Nobel Peace Prize with. Poor Donald. It was just not a good meeting all around. Outcome is the Empress. In this case, Putin maybe gave Donald some suggestions, but Donald's bowing to Russia. I don't know any other way to put it. I heard that on a TikTok, and it's like, you know what? That's a pretty accurate statement. Putin owns Donald Trump. Donald Trump bends the knee to Vladimir Putin. It's just the way it is. And if you didn't know any better, you'd say that Russia was the superpower and the United States was the weak country. And instead, what we have is a weak leader that has divided the country. Now, some of you are going to worry about, is this going to actually happen? Will this actually go through? No. I mean, the red states, the Republican-run states, are already doing all this stuff. And I imagine they could get rid of mail-in ballots, but they might hear about it from their constituents. Because remember, back in the day, it wasn't so long ago, pre-COVID, it was the people 65 and up that voted mostly conservative that used mail-in ballots. Save, when you're arthritic, or you got a bad hip, or, it takes a long time to get out of the house and into the car and stuff like that. You know what? You can mail it in and everything's fine. You got to take your time, read the initiatives, fill it out, double check it, send it off. Easy peasy. And the Republicans spent years encouraging their voters to vote by mail-in ballot. And then it was only right around the time Trump got elected that they started encouraging them to show up in person. And certainly in 2020. And that's probably in 2016 that I think they were doing that. And that's because they had figured out this algorithm to help swap votes. That is most likely the reason why they're encouraging their folks to show up on election day. Because it helps mask the corruption, the vote switching. Because all the news agencies report about how most of the Republican voters will show up on election day. So you expect bigger Republican numbers. You're expecting it. So when you get it, you're not surprised. But what if the numbers were actually like within 1%, but because they are cheating with both hands, they can make it 4%. Switch 3% of the votes. So that's all you need to win a state. I don't have any proof that that's what's happening, but it fits the data, and it fits the data that was being shown in the Rockland County case as well as Clark County, where they were showing that same thing happening. The executive order is being written; it's going to get signed. Will this impact, or how will this impact the election, if at all? King of Swords. Well, going to go to court. Putin's gift to Trump is going to go to court. It's not going to stand up in court. Yeah, I think a lot of these court are going to go to courts. Will it go to the Supreme Court? There's certainly it could go to the Supreme Court because the Constitution defends the states' rights to prosecute their elections as they see fit. And Trump knows that he's got 6 members on the Supreme Court that keep giving him gifts. So he doesn't mind if these cases go to court because 1, he's not paying the lawyers, and 2, the final court has a lot of sycophants that owe him favors for life. And Ida Wan's in the past. That's part of the plan, actually. Yeah, go ahead, fight it. Go ahead, we'll go to court. I got my Supreme Court lined up. Current situation is the Page of Swords. This is a nascent idea. I imagine the lawsuits are already being drafted to fight it. This will not go down without a fight. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He knows the Supreme Court is corrupt, and they will help him. And if nothing else, it gets you to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Overarching energy is the Six of Swords. Yeah, he's trying to cause waves. Focus on this. Here, focus on this. Focus on this. Focus on Russia. Focus on Ukraine. Focus on me taking away your voting rights. Don't worry about Jeffrey Epstein. Lesson we learned is the Two of Wands. He can keep talking about this for a while. This will have long legs as a talking point. Outcome is going to be the Ten of Cups. I think the Republicans will probably play along with them. I don't know how they'll justify it, but they'll play along with it for a while because it gets Donald Trump off their case. And then they don't have to actually face awkward votes about releasing the Epstein files and the list and following up with Pam Bondi and why there was a list when there wasn't a list. That sort of thing. It's a distraction. This is a distraction, again, This is going nowhere. The Constitution's pretty damn clear, and even the originalists on the Supreme Court, the 6 that he's counting on, this is an originalist type thing. This isn't going to, this is going nowhere. It's a distraction. Okay? So I'm going to keep this short. I'll leave it here. Thank you very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I appreciate it. This reading is for entertainment purposes only, but I hope you found it insightful, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.